Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello, my students, how are you today? In this episode, we're going to have a look at Cambridge IELTS 7. We're going to do one exercise for reading, and we're going to start with passage 1. So as you can see here, this is reading passage 1. The title is Let's Go Bats. If I don't know what bats are, this is a picture of it, so I just take a look at it, and then I decide that probably it's going to talk about this creature that flies at night, that we think is kind of blind, feeds on insects, probably sometimes fruit, or even they actually suck creatures' blood, and so on. Okay, so now I go immediately to the questions here. So today we're going to tackle this type of questions. Questions 1 to 5, reading passage 1 has 5 paragraphs. Now, as you can see here, we have A, B, C, of course we have D and E as well. So what we have to do here is answer this question. Which paragraph contains the following information? Now you need to bear in mind that we're talking about following information. So this is a question about details in one of these paragraphs, or in each one of these paragraphs. This is not a matching for headings. This means that I might not use all these paragraphs. This is one thing. The second thing, always notice the nota bene NB. You may use any letter more than once. What does that mean? It means that I've got 5 pieces of information here that I have to match to these paragraphs, as you can see, and I might use one of these paragraphs more than once. Do I have to use all the paragraphs? Not necessarily. They didn't mention that, especially that this question has to do with what? Matching information in paragraphs, not matching headings with paragraphs. So be careful with the type of question you're tackling. Okay, so now what do we have to do here? I simply start with, the easiest thing to do is to start with the paragraph rather than starting with the question. This is a very important thing. You need to consider or think about where to start. Should I start with the question or with the text? Now the easier one is to start with the paragraph itself, because when you read the first 2 lines, as we do usually, and the last 2 lines to decide whether this paragraph includes that information or not, it is easier to search through these sentences only rather than taking one sentence and searching through the whole essay. That is very difficult, time wasting, and as you know, it's all about time in IELTS. So what I have to do now is simply read the first 2 lines and the last 2 lines. Now if I go through these lines quickly, you can actually pause and read them by yourself. So they're talking about here, bats have a problem how to find their way around in the dark. They hunt at night and cannot use light to help them. Okay, we got an idea. And if you go to the last 2 lines, here is the beginning of the sentence. Only after the mysterious mass extinction of the dinosaurs about 65 million years ago were our ancestors able to emerge into the daylight, etc., etc. Okay, so I look at number 1. Examples of wildlife other than bats which do not rely on vision to navigate by. Sounds tempting, because they did talk about bats and that they do not actually, or they cannot go out hunting in daylight. But if I go through it very quickly, if you just go this speed, I can't see actually any mentioning of specific animals or creatures that actually go out at night. So I'm just going to skip this. Now let's read 2. How early mammals avoided dying out. Now actually I've come across the word mammal or mammalian. Here it is. So I just can see here. Here's the word mammal. So I go through it very quickly. It is probably, now this is a typo here. This is probably, but this is probable that the nocturnal traits go way back in the ancestor of all mammals. In the time when the dinosaurs dominated the daytime economy, our mammalian ancestors probably only managed to survive at all because they found a way of scrapping a living at night, etc., etc. Okay, so here This is A because they talk about how our ancestors means like أجدادنا بس يعني like really older ones. So how they avoided dying out by actually avoiding dinosaurs and trying, to work at night, get out at night and try to hunt animals, gather food, etc. Okay, now I read number 3. Why bats hunt in the dark? Actually, yes, because they talked about it in this part here. They say because they want to find prey and avoid obstacles, meaning other birds that fly in the morning, like many birds fly during daylight. So these bats decided to fly at night. So I'm gonna choose A as well. Now, if I go through 4 and 5, I do not find anything actually that is related to A. So I'll go through it quickly. How a particular discovery has helped our understanding of bats? Not really. They didn't even talk about any discoveries. They're still talking about history, like really old history. No devices, no machines, no mentioning of discovering things or tools, science, nothing actually. Now, the last one, early military uses of echolocation, no mentioning of military devices, not even echolocation. As you can see, these are keywords in this phrase, but they're not. They were not mentioned at all. Now let's go to paragraph B. I again focus on the last 2 lines and the first 2 lines. So I would just read: bats have an engineering problem. How to find their way and find their prey in the absence of light. Bats are not the only creatures to face this difficulty today. Obviously, the night flying insects that they prey on must find their way about somehow. Deep sea fish, okay, they're talking about whales also, talking about these creatures. Even if you go down a little bit, they talk about like plenty of our modern animals make their living in conditions where seeing is difficult or impossible. Now, where did I read this thing? Like mentioning a number of creatures, actually in number 1. So, examples of wildlife other than bats which do not rely on vision. Yes, this is B. So now this is B. Now, number 4 and 5, they're not going to be definitely in paragraph B because I've already come across them. There's no talking about, discovery or anything related to this. Now let's move to the third paragraph. That would be paragraph C. Again, I start by reading the first 2 lines and the last 2 lines or the last 2 sentences. So let's read here. Given the questions of how to maneuver in the dark, what solutions might an engineer consider? Okay, so here they're talking about what solutions engineers try to find out. If you go to the last 2 lines as well, if I can read from here, it seems to be the case that, with the possible exception of some weird deep sea fish, no animal apart from man uses manufactured light to find its way about. Now here, as you can see, even if you read a little bit further in the top, on the top, or in the top, sorry, I mean at the top of the paragraph here, you can still see that they're talking about what different types of animals and creatures that actually produce light to, go around and maybe find food, etc. Whereas there is no particular, as you said here, no particular discovery that has helped our understanding of bats. So this is not number 4, definitely. So let's go to the last one. Early military uses of echolocation. Now, even the word echolocation has not been mentioned at all in this part. So then C doesn't have actually any answer here. Now let's go to paragraph D. Again, reading the first 2 lines and the last 2 lines. What else might the engineer think of? Well, blind humans sometimes seem to have an uncanny sense of obstacles in their path. It has been given the name facial vision. Okay, they're talking about blind people. Now, if I go to the last 2 lines, both sides in the Second World War relied heavily on these devices under the code names as Aztec, British, and Sonar, American, as well as radar, etc., etc. Now, I can see here that they're talking about what? They're talking about World War They're talking about, having different devices, using them, etc. So, and they're talking about what sonar and radar and all that stuff. So the closest one is actually five, because they say use early military uses of echolocation. If you even go a little bit up, you can actually find some more information talking about these things and about the echolocation and all that. So it is actually mentioned here. So number five goes with D. Now I'm stuck with the last one. I have actually the last paragraph, E. Let's read the first two lines again and the last two lines. The sonar and radar pioneers didn't know it then, but all the world now knows that bats, or rather natural selection, working on bats had perfected the system tens of millions of years earlier, and their radar achieved feats of detection and navigation. Etc. So they're talking about what? That they had this thing. Okay, so if I go a little bit down as well, the last two lines approximately. Now it starts from here, so I can just read from here. The American zoologist Donald Griffith was largely responsible for the discovery of sonar in bats, coined the term echolocation to cover both sonar and radar, whether used by animals or by human instruments. Okay, so here they're talking about how they studied bats and then they came up with what? Echolocation and sonar, radar, etc. And the closest actually is number four, how a particular discovery has helped our understanding of bats. Because actually, if you keep even reading, you will understand, you will know exactly, or you find something very similar. Actually, it starts from here. So it's a scientific understanding of the details what bats are doing has come from applying radar theory to them. Okay? So discovering about radar and making theories about it and all that has actually led us to understand what? To understand bats. So this is how we choose paragraph E to be the match for question or phrase 4 in this question. Now again, how do we approach this task? It is easier first decide whether it's easier to go through the sentences first or the paragraphs first. Read the first two lines and last two lines to decide whether, okay, maybe this is the paragraph that matches or not. If you're not sure, you can actually scan through this, the whole paragraph, but very quickly, be careful, very quickly, and scan for what? The key words that you might find in the paragraph. And this is how we do it. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to support my channel by subscribing, like, and share with your friends. Wish you the best. Have a